What if I told you a young woman from Tennessee would become one of the greatest college basketball coaches ever?
Women's basketball is just getting better and better.
What if I told you that she would lead her team to 8 national championships and 1,098 wins, the most
We have
ever?
the greatest fans in women's basketball, and you're here tonight.
And what if I told you that her legacy would strive way further than just her impressive record?
Just really proud of them. I guess really couldn't have asked for anything more.
Coach Summitt is one of the strongest women I know. She's battled everything and just always has a positive attitude. Her message isn't just through words, but she actually lives it. And I think that that's what's so remarkable about her.
People think of Tennessee. More than their men's coach, more than anything else, they think of Pat Summitt, which is unheard of, as you know, in the sports world. I don't know how you can even put into words what she's done for the women's game.
She was a role model for me. She was a mentor because our lives were very similar.
But behind the wins and accolades was a story of perseverance, grit, and courage, a story that would inspire many generations of athletes and anyone who faced adversity. This is the story of Pat Summitt, the legendary coach who not only won games, but also won hearts. Born as Patricia Sue Head in 1952, she was given the nickname Trish, and her early life was shaped by her love for basketball, her family, and her rural community in Montgomery County, Tennessee. She grew up on a farm with 3 brothers and a sister who helped her get aggressive while playing basketball on a homemade court in their barn. It was there she developed her toughness and competitive spirit that would become her trademark. Summitt's talent in basketball is evident as early as middle school, where she led her team to an undefeated season in 8th grade and was the team's leading scorer. She continued to excel in high school, where she moved from a different town to play on an all-girls team at Cheatham County Central High because her former high school didn't even have a girls' team. She was a starting forward on the team from freshman year through graduation, where she was named Basketball Sweetheart of the Season and most popular in the high school's yearbook. Before taking a look at Coach Summitt's history, we have to take a look at the origin of the game of basketball we know today. Basketball was invented in 1891 by Canadian physical education instructor named James Naismith. This is a unique history because basketball is one of the only sports that knows its exact creation story. Naismith was tasked with creating a new game that could be played indoors during the winter months at the International YMCA training school in Springfield, Massachusetts. He had a couple of set objectives in mind. The game had to be safe, easy to learn, and promote fitness. And so he created games with 2 baskets that hung on either side of the gym, with an objective of throwing the ball into the opposing team's basket and preventing the other team from doing the same. The first game ever was played with a soccer ball and 9 players on each team. But it wasn't as smooth as it might have seemed. Here's what Naismith himself had to say.
What rules did you have for your new game, Dr. Naismith?
Well, I didn't have enough, and that's where I made my big mistake. The boys began tackling, kicking and punching in the clinches. They ended up in a free-for-all in the middle of the gym floor. Before I could pull them apart, one boy was knocked out, several of them had black eyes, and one had a dislocated shoulder. It certainly was murder.
While basketball was originally created for men, women quickly adopted the game and formed teams of their own. In fact, some women's basketball teams were established before men's teams at universities across the country. At some universities like the University of Michigan, basketball began in 1894, before the men's team in 1909. The University of California, Berkeley also established a women's basketball team in 1893, compared to the men's program, which began in 1907. The University of Oregon's women's basketball program began in 1899, while the men's program was established in 1902. During World War II, as men were drafted into the military and sports teams struggled to fill their rosters, women's teams emerged to fill the void. Initially met with skepticism, these women's teams quickly gained popularity, drawing large crowds and proving themselves as skilled and passionate athletes. For many of these women, playing basketball was more than just a way to entertain crowds. It was a chance to challenge societal norms and prove themselves in a world that had long dismissed them as inferior. Despite facing discrimination and prejudice, these women's teams persevered, and their hard work and dedication paved the ways for future generations of female athletes. Today, the legacy of these women is clear. They proved that women's basketball is a legitimate sport that deserved respect and recognition. With basketball soaring around this time, the sport became a symbol of national pride and unity, and end-of-season tournaments started to emerge. In 1938, the National Invitation Tournament was established. In the following year, in 1939, the NCAA created a tournament of its own, as they thought it was going to be a way for them to make a lot of money. This was the first of its kind, as no other sports were competing for championships. The NIT dominated until the early 1950s, as it became mandatory for the winners in the top 10 conferences to play in the NCAA tournament. A point shaving scandal emerged, which ended up causing a loss of reputation for the NIT. These tournaments brought more attention to the sport and allowed teams to compete on a national level, which increased popularity even more. But where was the women's tournament at? They actually didn't have a tournament until 1982. That's over 40 years after the men's was made. Women in not only sports, but every aspect of life were treated unequally. For example, before the passing of Title IX, a pregnant woman was vulnerable to discrimination in the workplace. She can get fired for simply being pregnant. They had no legal resources to fight back. They were often denied basic rights and freedoms that men took for granted, including the ability to get a credit card in their own name. Women were also excluded from certain professions, serving on a jury and fighting on the front lines. And women's sports were no exception to this inequality. Women who played sports faced numerous barriers, including a lack of access to training facilities, limited funding, and a general perception that women were not physically capable of playing sports at a high level. Some people even said women's bodies weren't even made to exercise. Only 1 in 27 girls played high school sports at this time, and there were less than 30,000 female college athletes. Michigan's legendary coach, Boschen Beckler, wrote a letter to the Michigan Athletic Department, saying female athletes were never allowed to and would never get varsity jackets with the block M on them. This was because he thought it would minimize the M and ruin its value. He signed his name at the end, which diminished some of his reputation. Coach Summitt's college career as a player began in the midst of the creation of Title IX. She went on to play at the University of Tennessee Martin from 1970 to 1974, where she became an All-American and was UT Martin's all-time leading scorer, with 1,045 points as a Lady Pacer. While accomplishing all this, she earned her bachelor's degree in physical education and her master's degree in the same field at Tennessee Knoxville. After becoming a graduate assistant for the University of Tennessee in 1975, she returned to the court in 1976 as a member of the United States silver medal winning team, and after that, she decided to retire as a player. But that was just the beginning of Pat Summitt's legendary career. Without Title IX, Pat Summitt wouldn't have had the opportunities to be as great as she was. In 1972, these 37 words were passed by Congress. No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. This well-needed law helped women pursue careers in STEM that many never thought would ever be possible. Here's what University of Michigan's former head softball coach Carol Hutchins had to say.
Well, none of us could have done anything that we've done without the law. The law is only as good as you use it. And, but she brought attention to women's sports because of her expertise and excellence. She demanded, I think, from her university and therefore from the world, by attaining her excellence, people couldn't help but follow her. They couldn't help but watch with admiration and the wow factor of, wow, look at this woman doing this. And really, that's because she had the opportunity that was provided by Title IX. Because I don't care how good you are, if there's no opportunity for you, I mean, what are you going to do with all your skill sets? But she certainly brought women's basketball to the forefront, to the limelight, and where it is today. No question.
And Coach Hutchins was right. Title IX and Pat Summitt herself both played key roles in women equality. The interesting part about this law was that it said nothing about college athletics, but it had a drastic effect on college sports as a whole, as universities would lose federal funding if they didn't comply with Title IX. Title IX did so many great things for female athletes. It hurt some of the jobs for female college coaches. Before Title IX, women made up about 90% of the women's college basketball coaches. After Title IX, it dropped by over 40%. One factor was the increasing professionalization and commercialization of college sports, which made coaching positions more competitive and desirable. This led to more men entering coaching roles, as they were often perceived as having more experience and qualifications than women during this time. There were fewer opportunities for women to receive coaching training and certification, which made it more difficult for them to compete for coaching positions. Gender bias and discrimination also played a role, as some athletic directors and hiring committees may have been reluctant to hire women coaches, and many were and still are against hiring a female coach or a female athletic director. This is a problem today. Coach Hutchins told me about when the University of Michigan was looking for a new basketball coach, and they turned to Coach Hutch and said, "We're going to interview the best coach in college basketball." Coach Hutchins said, "Are you going to interview Pat Summitt?" The University of Michigan laughed at her, showing that they didn't want a woman coaching the men's team. But the University of Tennessee's best decision ever was to go against the brand and hire Pat Summitt herself in 1974. Pat Summitt joined the Ladies Vols basketball program as a graduate assistant under head coach Margaret Hudson. She then took on the role of assistant coach the following year. Summitt's coaching style was unique. Here's how Coach Hudson described it.
A fiery stare when I'm mad at a player. I get right in your grill and just give you the honest, hard truth because I don't have time for anything else. And I always demanded more of them than they demanded of themselves. And I think those probably are similar qualities.
In 1976, Summitt was named the head coach of Tennessee at the young age of 22. When Pat first started coaching, she would put up flyers to try and attract the most talent because she didn't get to recruit or give out scholarships. Looking for an assistant coach, Pat didn't get to pay for her coaching staff. She had to find an unpaid volunteer. Pat was a do-it-all type of coach. She had to learn how to tape ankles too, as they didn't even have an athletic trainer. Her starting salary was only $250 a month. Despite these challenges, Summitt was determined to build a successful program. In her first season as head coach, Summitt led the Lady Vols to a 16-8 record and a spot in the AIAW National Tournament. Though they were eliminated in the first round, it was clear something special was brewing in Tennessee. Over the next few years, Summitt continued to improve the Lady Vols record and brought in talented players, such as Cindy Brogdon, who became the first Lady Vol to earn All-American honors in 1979. By 1982, Summitt led the team to the first ever NCAA women's tournament. Tennessee lost in the Final Four, but Summitt's coaching skills were evident, as she modeled the team into a formidable opponent. And in 1984, they advanced to the championship, but couldn't get it done. Despite these successes, Summitt remained unsatisfied, as she continued to push herself and her players to reach new heights. By the end of the 1985-1986 season, Summitt had compiled an impressive record of 288-85, and had firmly established Tennessee as one of the top programs in women's basketball. While they had yet to win a national championship, Summitt's coaching abilities were proven. But there's still one question. Will Summitt ever get it done? Will she win a national championship? In the following year, Pat led her team to a 23-6 record, which earned them a 2 seed in the tournament. With high expectations in the field of 40, Pat Summitt and her Lady Volunteers entered the 1987 NCAA Women's Tournament, with their journey beginning in the first round against Tennessee Tech. The Lady Vols secured a commanding victory by a score of 95-59. In the second round, the Lady Vols faced a tougher challenge and 3-seeded Virginia. The game was close the entire contest, with the Lady Vols ultimately pulling away in the fourth quarter to secure a hard-fought 66-58 victory. The Elite Eight brought another challenging opponent in 1-seeded Auburn. The Lady Vols rallied together and put on a dominant display in the second half to secure a 77-61 victory and advance to the Final Four yet again. Their toughest challenge yet came in the Final Four against the first seed from the West in Long Beach State. The Lady Vols dug deep and showed their resilience, ultimately grinding out a 74-64 victory to advance to the national championship against Louisiana Tech. In the championship game against Louisiana Tech, they were playing against the 1 seed for the third game in a row. Tennessee put on a masterclass display of basketball, dominating the Lady Techsters in the first half. But only up by 9 at half, they knew they had to finish strong, and here's how the game finished out.
Irwin Center in Austin, Texas. Matthew from the Irwin Center on the campus of the University of Texas.
Louisiana Tech's man-to-man defense really affected them in the last game they played.
Witherspoon with the steal, whistle and foul, and the bucket will go. She is some kind of quick.
To be honest with you, Tim, I think she thinks this is her year. I've never seen her so confident in a Final Four.
Nice turnaround jumper by Frost. Thornton's shot is an air ball. Rebound Frost. She scores and she's fouled.
And Butler will be with us.
Now very wisely gets it back outside to Sexton. This is Tanya Edwards, and she is hot. Tori Harrison with the turnaround jumper, and it goes. 39-31.
That's what I mean by the seams, where Tanya Edwards just dribbled into.
Gord.
And she's been pacing the sideline.
Pat Summitt had finally done it, as she and her Lady Volunteers took over the second half, winning 67-44, which made them the 1987 national champions.
Pat Summitt, she's been here 8 times, and she finally has the win. 13 years at Tennessee, 11 consecutive seasons of 20 or more wins.
The beginning for Pat Summitt, as she went on to win 7 more national championships after that. Her final came in 2008 when she and Candace Parker defeated Stanford to win back-to-back national championships for the second time in her young career. But soon after that, Pat's coaching career came to an end in 2012 when she retired as she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Pat Summitt then passed away on June 26, 2016. Her impact on the game cannot be overstated, and her legacy lives through countless players and coaches whom she inspired and mentored over the years. Pat finished with 1,098 wins, 8 national championships, 22 Final Four appearances. She coached and led the U.S. Olympic team to a gold medal in 1984, and in 2000, she was inducted to the Basketball Hall of Fame and named Naismith Coach of the Century. The legacy that Summitt left was undeniable and will be remembered for generations to come. But perhaps one of Summitt's most impressive accomplishments was her 100% graduation rate for all her players who completed their eligibility at Tennessee. This not only speaks to her dedication to the sport, but also to her commitment in developing her players as people. In 2005, the Thompson Boylan Arena, where she coached so many memorable games, was renamed the Summitt in her honor. And in 2016, ESPNW established the Pat Summitt Award to honor individuals who embody the values that Pat Summitt lived by: excellence, leadership, and perseverance. The inaugural recipient of the award was Michigan softball coach Carol Hutchins. This is what it meant to her.
I was absolutely beyond honored to win an award that was in Pat Summitt's name, and to be compared with her for having the courage, which is what the award said, the courage to fight the battles. It's just, again, it's an honor of all honors. Pat Summitt is certainly one of many women like myself who have made athletics their career. I mean, she was our hero.
So, was Pat Summitt the greatest of all time? Names like John Wooden, Mike Krzyzewski, and Gino Auriemma immediately come to mind. Wooden's unparalleled success at UCLA and winning 12 national championships, Krzyzewski's time at Duke with over 1,200 wins, and Auriemma's 11 national titles at UConn all make strong cases for their inclusion in the conversation of greatest of all time. And yet it's impossible to overlook what Summitt accomplished during her illustrious career. Not just her 8 national championships or 1,098 wins, but her impact on the women's game as society as a whole, which will never be emphasized enough. Pat Summitt will always be remembered as one of the most innovative, inspiring, and successful coaches in the history of the sport. The debate over who the greatest basketball coach of all time will continue for years to come. Is Pat Summitt the greatest? I guess that's for you to decide.
Ask all of you to join me together so we will win.